I was planning to release a completely different video today, but this is way too big to ignore. And I wanted to talk about it right away. But, this is absolutely ridiculous. Sony has officially confirmed global price increases for the PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 Pro, and PlayStation Portal. And the timing could not be worse. This was posted on PlayStation blog right before the weekend, and it's exactly the kind of news that instantly gets people annoyed. Sony says that the price change are happening because of the continued pressure in the global economy landscape, and that after careful evaluation, this was a necessary step to keep delivering high-quality gaming experience worldwide. But let us be real, that explanation does not make things sting any less. The new pricings are just brutal. In the US, the standard PlayStation 5 is going to $650 and Digital Edition is going to be $600, while the PlayStation 5 Pro is now $900. That is an insane jump, especially for a console that does not even come with a disc drive. Once you factor in the disc drive and tax, the PlayStation 5 Pro is basically creeping into 4 digits territory. That is the kind of a price that makes a lot of people just pause and rethink whether they want to enter the PlayStation ecosystem at all. Now in UK, the standard PlayStation 5 is now £570 and digital is £520, while the PlayStation 5 Pro is £780. In Europe, where I am at, the standard for the PlayStation 5 is going to be €650, the digital edition is €600, while the PlayStation 5 Pro is €900. And in Japan, the standard PlayStation 5 is now 98,000 yen, while the digital is 90,000 yen, and the PlayStation 5 Pro is 137,000, well, 138,000 in this case, yen. I'm just thankful the way I purchased the PlayStation 5 Pro on day one. Even the PlayStation Portal is getting a hit like mentioned. In the US it's going to $250, in UK it's $220, in the Europe it's €250, and in Japan is almost 40,000 yen. So this is not just about the main console. Sony is raising prices pretty much across the board. And the most ridiculous part is that all of this takes effect on April 2nd. This is not some distant thing that might happen later. It is happening pretty much immediately. That makes it even just feel harsher because there's just no real time for people to prepare for it. And better yet, what makes this even more frustrating is that Sony's own recent financial language made it sound like the company had more flexibility than this. Not too long ago, Sony's CFO Lin Tao was basically saying that the company was already in a position to secure the minimum amount of memory needed for the year-end selling season of the next physical year. That wording mattered, and it was talking about the next physical year's holiday season, which could stretch into the late of 2026. That's a big difference. It suggests that Sony had enough room to manage the situation without doing something this extreme to hardware pricing. The company also said it could continue negotiating with suppliers and that, given the stage of the console cycle, its hardware sales strategy could still be adjusted flexibly. In other words, Sony sounded like it was saying, we can deal with this. But now the pricing tells a very different story, because this does not feel flexible at all. Like, it feels like a customer is being asked to absorb the hit, and that is where the frustration really starts to build. Because consoles are supposed to be the entry point. They're supposed to be the affordable box that gets people into the ecosystem. They're not supposed to keep climbing higher and higher until they start feeling like a luxury product. Yes, there are real pressures here. Memory costs are indeed high, storage components are more expensive, there are global economy issues, there are tariffs, and there's supply concerns. There's also a lot going on behind the scenes, but consoles have always meant to be subsidized or at least kept within a range that makes sense, because the real money comes later through software, subscriptions, digital sales, and network services. That is exactly why this is so annoying. Sony already makes huge money from the people who are inside of the ecosystem. Players are more digital than ever. Store transactions are constant. Subscriptions matter more than ever. The install base is already massive, so when the hardware itself starts rising this much, it makes people question how much more expensive this generation is going to get before it finally stops. And that is the part that really makes this just feel bad for the future too. It creates a lot of the uncertainty around what PlayStation 6 is going to look like. If this is where the current generation is headed, what does this next one was going to do? Are we just supposed to accept that the old $500 console era is pretty much gone forever? Because if Sony wants to keep moving high volume hardware, it's going to need pricing strategy that does not scare people off before they even get into the doors. That's also why I keep thinking that the PlayStation 5 Pro cannot stay in the lineup forever at this price. At some point, Sony is going to need to clean up the product range before PlayStation 6 arrives. If the next console is meant to launch in a world where these issues are still going on, then having a $900 PlayStation 5 Pro is sitting there in the background only makes everything messier. Sony needs room to breathe if it wants the next generation to make sense. And that is what makes this whole situation just so ugly. It's not just one price increase, it's what it means for everything around it. It means higher game prices feel more likely. It makes PlayStation Plus feel like it could go up again. It makes the next generation feel more expensive before it even exists. And it makes the entire console marketing feel like it's drifting further and further away from the kind of a pricing people used to accept. You know, this is one of the few times in video game history where people were genuinely better off buying it as early as they could. Because nobody would have predicted price jumps this steep this far into the console generation. We're not talking about launch shortages anymore. We're deep into the life cycle, and yet the prices are still rising like this. This is why this announcement is so brutal. It's not just bad news for today, it's bad news for the whole direction of PlayStation hardware going forward. You know, I am excited about the future of the PlayStation ecosystem, but stuff like this makes it harder to feel good about where everything is headed. This whole thing is just bad, really bad, and honestly this is the kind of announcement that leaves you wondering whether it's just the new norm now. It's very worrying. Well, do let me know down in the comments as well what you think about all this ordeal relating to the PlayStation. And just actually, now to think about it, it's not just the PlayStation fault here, it's pretty much the whole industry and the whole situation that's going on worldwide. Thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe. I see you guys all, and have a wonderful day.